Well. Here we are, a week later, since the great Game 7 massacre of 2022. Phoenix Suns fans, we're still navigating our feelings. We're still trying to figure out how to absorb the massive loss that the Phoenix Suns had at the hands of the Dallas Mavericks. So we thought a good way to do that was to have some sort of therapy session, if you will, combining the forces of the Aussie's Suns Fans podcast and the Fanning the Flames podcast with the Suns Jam Session podcast to just kind of navigate where we're at, talk about what we're feeling, look towards the future, try to figure out what's going on, and try to find some semblance of closure in a season that surely will always affect us as Suns fans. So first and foremost, I welcome to the podcast Matthew Lissy from the Suns Jam Session podcast. How are you doing, Matthew? No background behind you anymore.
No, it's gone. My green screen threw it away. I donated it back to Goodwill where I got it.
Understandable.
You know, how am I feeling? Is that what you asked?
Not yet. I'm not.
Am I doing
yet.
okay? Not
I'm
yet.
Just saying hi.
We'll
how you doing?
Later. Yeah. Who cares?
For those of you who don't know, I'm John Voida from the Suns Jam Session podcast, and I'm bringing in Dervish of Whirl. Give it up for Paul from the Fanning the Flames podcast.
How you doing, folks?
Howdy.
Welcome aboard. It's good to see you hanging out in the closet once again. There's a reason you're an audio-only podcast.
One of many reasons we're an audio-only podcast.
Welcome to Gavin from the Aussie Suns Fans podcast. How are you doing?
How are we doing, guys?
Fantastic. What time is it there?
It is 1 p.m., so just perfect time to open the first beer.
There we go. That's nice. What I'm talking about. We also have Nate joining us from the Aussies Fans Suns Pass. I'm just done talking.
Yeah, that's honestly, it's our favorite thing watching you guys try to pronounce Aussie Suns Fans podcast.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. A lot of alliteration with S's and such. And of course, Boyd, welcome to the show, Boyd. How are you doing?
Howdy, guys. How's it going? I'm going unreal. I've finally made it onto the Suns Jam podcast. I've made it. This is life.
It only took the largest Game 7 loss in NBA history for this to happen. So, I mean, welcome everybody to the Suns, or Fanning the Aussie Suns Jam Session podcast, Megapod, brought to you by your local Jeep and Eagle dealer. Justin just texted me and he said he's having an issue. He's running late. He'll be on in 5. He's given us permission to start, guys, so we're good.
He's on just in time. I'm used to it.
Well, I think before we get into everything related to the Phoenix Suns, we got to pop open some sort of beverage. I've got a nice little center CBD beverage because I'm still trying to chill out.
CBD too. I got some THC in this one, though.
Look at that. We're just over here getting high. Nate's popping open a beer. I see that everyone. All right. Yep. Gavin's got a beer. Oh, look it.
Oh,
Paulie brought out the big old Jameson bottle. Let's go. Well, pop them if you got them.
Jameson and Gingy.
Let's talk about the 2022 Phoenix Suns. So it was a very disappointing end to a very promising season and potential postseason run. So I guess the first question I'll start at is, and I'll just kind of go around the horn, if you will. I'll start with Matthew. How you feeling a week later, and what stage of grief are you at? Are you at denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance? Where are you at, Matthew?
I've kind of forgotten about it a little bit. I'm just kidding. I'm super angry still. I haven't even watched any basketball till probably tonight, the Boston Celtics game. I watched like 15 minutes of it, but I'm still very upset where I can't even watch the Western Conference Finals. It feels very weird. I feel like this whole thing that happened, you know, it's kind of a distraction from all the UFO sightings we've seen. You know what I mean? It has to be, right? Whatever just happened to the Suns is a total distraction. So for me to get over it, it'll probably be another couple months, honestly, until Book gets back from the wedding, until we see more of them back in the training camp. Then I'll get more into basketball game. But right now, I just don't give a shit.
Paul, how you feeling?
I'm Gucci. I'm all good.
Well, how deep into that bottle of Jameson are you?
Yeah, I was like,
how deep into that bottle of Jameson are you?
Before or after?
This is glass number 1.
Okay, and you're still Gucci. Okay,
I've been good for a while, man.
How and why? Teach me.
I don't let sports control my life, even though I'm on a sports podcast.
I don't believe you. I say that too. But I just
I we'll get into it later, but I mean,
All right.
there's a lot of stuff. I'm
All right,
okay with.
all right. Gavin, how you feeling? Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm still trying to work out which stage of grief I'm in, but I feel like I'm in bargaining at the moment. So I'm sort of negotiating what our off season's going to look like and how we're going to come out the other side of it. I quickly went through the anger phase though, and that probably resulted in throwing like a laptop or two. But yeah, I'm with Matthew. I've watched zero of the finals. The Western and Eastern Conference Finals. I
watched the flight attendant. That was good.
Is it good?
It's awesome. It's so fucking insane. It's
how many
awesome.
episodes is it?
There's 2 seasons, 8 episodes each. They're the season
30-minute or hour episodes.
Hour episodes. It's awesome. Watch it.
Okay.
So good.
Okay, Nate, how you feeling?
There's a bit of a trend going on because I have not watched a game of basketball since I mean, I thought I was dealing with the fact that we weren't playing finals. I mean, me and Gav have joked we're just going to go. We're Mercury fans now.
They'll lose in the finals too, didn't they?
They're blowing up too. They're already fighting.
They're losing everything at the moment.
Yeah.
Hey, can you stop in Russia on your way and bring back BG?
Yeah, we need her. Boyd, how you feeling?
Yeah, I've accepted it, mate. I've done I've written a bit of a list down, like a couple of hours after the game 7, then done some reflection on the entire season and how I feel about it, and you know, I'm staying a Suns fan, so I dealt with it, mate.
That's great. Your face, Boyd.
No, you talking about the new mustache?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
The mustache is terrible, mate.
So my son, I just introduced him to that Scatman song.
Oh no!
Yeah, seen the film. That's the one. So, anyways, I've come out this morning playing that song with an attempt at a mustache. So he got a real good kick out of it. So I'm just sticking with it for the day. So
his
I'll
mustache
give you
is
this
bad.
much,
what
buddy.
about mine?
Your mustache?
Yeah.
Your mustache looks like you're 12.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I was going for.
Boyd looks like a Pedro Pascal impersonator. I'll give him that much.
I'll take it.
I gotta Google that up.
Oh, you don't know who that is, Matthew? Well, it's interesting because you take a look. You got a group of 6 Suns fans here, all podcasters, mind you. We got a couple who are at acceptance, a couple who are still at anger, one who's kind of in bargaining, and it's been a week for me too. I definitely went through the anger phase. I think I wrote 6 different articles for Bright Side of the Sun, just blasting different aspects of the Suns. I blasted James Jones. I blasted Monty Williams, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton. I mean, I kind of I was like, I'm going to use this as my therapy session. And after that's all said and done, I'm still kind of in the anger phase. I think that this podcast is going to get me to the acceptance phase because I like what Boyd said. I'm not going to stop being a Suns fan. I'm just at this point trying to absorb the magnitude of the loss that occurred. It was unbelievably frustrating to see us go down in such a manner, and I'm still trying to find out the why. And there's too many variables as to why. And we'll talk about some of those things here momentarily. But I think that's been one of the hardest things for me is this team that performs with such excellence and precision throughout the entire regular season. When it came down to it, didn't adjust. Didn't have the heart. And I started going down the conspiracy theory, you saw the how resigned Chris Paul was. I was like, maybe the NBA came to him and said, listen, we need Luka in the Western Conference Finals, so we need you to lose. There's going to be a bunch of money for you, but you're going to have to lose. And he had that look on his face like, fuck, man, I got to lose this shit on purpose, And I know it's all bullshit, but still, that's how fucked up I am right now trying to figure out what the hell happened. So as we start
hearing you say that.
What's that?
It hurts just hearing you say that.
I know but that's what happens when it's been weird. It's been a week since I've talked about it. I've had people in my life who will come and they'll ask me some questions like, "Hey, what happened with the Suns?" And I'm just like, just leave me the fuck alone. Go watch the highlights. Yeah, I know, right?
They're the worst ones. The random messages from people you haven't heard from in 4 years that, hey, didn't see any Phoenix Suns posts from you this week, or seriously, you haven't spoken to me in 6 years. Piss off.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
and
know.
the
It's
worst part is like during game 7, it was when I was getting all the text messages. Like in the second and third quarter, it's like, are you serious? Like right now during game 7, you expect me to respond to you.
yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people asking me about the Suns pick and roll defense that I haven't heard from since high school. I'm like, how'd you get my number? You know, yeah, like I don't want to hear about the Suns drop defense or you know the lack of aggression from DeAndre Ayton. You know, I get it. He's probably the only guy in the history of eating Oreos to lay up his Oreo instead of dunking it into the milk. Saw that one on Facebook. I thought that was funny.
That's
But
not
at the same time, you know, it's just like I'm not at that point right now where I feel like I'm totally at acceptance. Now, bringing in a guy whose audio is really interesting.
Is he on a flight?
Yeah, Justin, are you on a flight right now? I don't even think he knows he's on right now. I'm just gonna remove him right now. he looked like he had no idea what he's on.
That was a lovely cameo.
That was. Thanks for stopping by to Justin. I don't know what he's doing. Boyd's back. We're going back and forth. For those of you who are listening to the podcast, you're lucky.
We'll edit that out.
There's no editing. This is live. Quick, I want to give a shout out to Squampy. $70 in Canadian dollars from the Super Chat. He says, as promised, cheers from Canada. And thanks for a great season of podcasts, lads. Get Lissy some gluten-free beverages in my honor. Is that gluten-free what you're drinking?
It's gluten-free. Yeah, it's
but
just
it's high
straight
in
up
THC, right?
Yeah, it's a weed cigarette. It's just stuck in a can. So
Oh, nice. This is going to get
yeah.
real interesting really quick. Justin, how you doing?
Oh, what's up,
All right.
boys?
It's working. How you doing?
Look, I can hear you. I can see you. Our pets' heads are falling off.
How does your hair grow so fast? I feel like the last time I saw you, you know, you had like a beard and like a low cut. And now like the Suns get eliminated from the playoffs and you look like a darn hippie.
You know what? I'm not going to lie. The flow it's a blessing and a curse. It truly is. That's all I'll say.
Well, I mean,
my hair does grow really fast.
It's about to be Arizona in the summertime. That can't be good for your neck sweat.
It's actually, in fact, it is terrible for neck sweat. I can confirm that much.
So what stage of grief are you at? How are you feeling when it comes to the Phoenix Suns?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
What does that even mean? Is that like he's in denial? Yep, good call.
Denial.
Gavin's right. He's in denial. So,
No,
okay,
see,
cool.
here's what I'll say. It's not denial because I know what happened. I've repressed it. I just remembered it for a second right there. I'm sorry. I can't figure. I'm on my iPad. I'm all disheveled, and I can't figure out. Like, I feel like my face is not in the center, and I keep,
there it is.
doing
This is actually the best you've looked on this podcast. So
Yes.
yeah, keep it up. Looks nice, man.
So
Keep the extensions on too.
Damn it, Lizzie.
Extensions.
Why are you gonna out me? Why are you outing me?
Well, I'll let you take the first crack at this question then, Justin.
Okay.
And we'll go around the board. Is this the most disappointing season or end of the season in Phoenix Suns history? If you can remember it, Justin. I know you've repressed said memories, but is this the most disappointing season or end of a season in the history of the Phoenix Suns franchise?
I will not say it was the most disappointing season because, I mean, dude, I had a blast this season. I did. Like, going to games, watching games with you guys every now and then when we could. Twitter, I love Twitter. I love everybody on Twitter. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't like me, but I love all of you. I really do. Dude, it was a great year. And the end of the year, I still feel I've honestly felt nothing from it. Because by the middle of the third quarter, I was numb. And I'm just like, it's kind of just felt like that throughout. I mean, I wasn't mad and I wasn't sad. It just kind of happened. But I'm ready for next year.
All right. So you're in like denial and acceptance at the same time. Like, I need to hook me up with your dealer because whatever he's giving you is working. Boyd, what do you
think? I've said the same thing throughout the year about the playoffs last year. And it's going to be that every year. So, well, you know, except for when we win the title, of course.
Of course.
Which will be next year, obviously.
Boyd, what do you think? Is this the most disappointing end of a season in the history of Phoenix Suns franchise history?
Well, it's the most disappointing end, but the actual season itself was the most awarding. Definitely the end. It all comes due to our expectations that we've put on this season after last season. So it's on us, I feel, and we've beaten ourselves ultimately in that game 7 in the arse end of that series. So I'll say it's the most rewarding season, but the most disappointing end to it all, for sure.
No, all right. Let's go right on down the line. Nate, what do you think?
Yeah, we're all on the same page, I think, back here, especially me and Gav, because like Boyd said, we expected to be in the finals. Like the last year was, awesome. We didn't expect to get this far. We're bringing it. This year, we're like, it's ours, the whole crown, all of it. Me and Gav booked flights basically, and traveled to America when this is happening. So for us, disappointed. The worst end to a season, in my memory, for me.
Yeah, like what rivals it? Mario
Losing
Ellie
to
Kiss
the
of Death.
Rockets.
So the Kiss of Death.
Yeah.
Robert Ory.
Yeah.
I'm getting
1993.
My heart's starting to beat faster, guys. Can we stop?
It's a therapy session.
Hey, can I ask one quick question?
I don't think the Robert Ory.
And
I'm sorry. I don't think the
Robert
Robert Ory one was disappointing. The disappointment happened before the game we lost with the Robert Ory one when they suspended the players.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was almost a sense of inevitability at that stage.
Yeah, fair.
Well, and also it was going into a game
Sad.
6. We still had an opportunity to win the series. We had won that game. In the Robert Ory game, we won. So going into the next game, you feel like you were kind of screwed. Justin still has his hand up, so I will politely call on Justin.
Completely off topic. Sorry.
Okay.
And I'm sorry if this was brought up before I got on, but Nate, I hope you're getting paid, bro.
I'm angling for it, bro. I'm angling for it. Because we're going to spend a lot of money at Marley's. If they can,
pretty sure someone put something in the chat saying, "Are you sponsored by Marley's?" So yeah.
Yeah, for those who listen to the pod, Nate's rocking a Marley's hat, a Marley shirt. I think there's a picture with him behind him with Dan Marley. Like,
holy shit, I didn't see that.
I just noticed right now.
You can tell because I'm the short ass. Yeah.
Paul, what do you think? Same question. Most disappointing end of a Suns season?
No, I don't think so. I mean, did it suck? Yeah. I mean, I think it was it's a situation of we peaked too early. It reminded me of my cross country team in high school where we peaked early and then crapped out in the final race because we scheduled it wrong. And I think we were just so far ahead that like those last 2 weeks of the season, they were coasting and then they couldn't turn it back on. So I'm all right. Not the most disappointing season. I was so much more like frantic and like insane about the like Nash years. Like those like were crushing to me. This, I'm all right.
Do you think that's
this
we were at a different point in our life?
Absolutely crushing from my perspective. But most disappointing Suns season? No way. I mean, geez, 3-4 years ago we were winning 19 games. They were disappointing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Start
that
to
was
finish.
Easier though.
Yeah, of course. When you're losing and you suck, it's always easier. But to be honest, I'd rather the crushing pain of disappointment by being a side that's going to be a championship contender than one where you get up, go to watch a game, and for us, they're all in the morning. Your day's already ruined because the team you're just about to watch is going to get probably stay close for a half and then get crushed in the second half.
Matthew, what do you think?
This is weird because like I'm thinking about like next season and how nothing will matter, right? What this team does, because this last season we did everything. I mean, the awards weren't really there. Of course, Mikal Bridges is probably a little bit too early to win the Defensive Player of the Year, but it's like we did everything a team can do during the season. And as we're going through the season, all the other teams kind of are just kind of coasting, kind of like picking it up in the second half of the season, not playing as hard as they should be, right? Taking a lot of nights off. The Suns never did. So it's disappointing because I'm just thinking about next year and it's just like, it doesn't fucking matter like what seed we have going into the playoffs now, right? It doesn't. And that's the worst part about this. That's the most disappointing part is because we didn't make it to the finals with such a great season. But it just, I was going to ask too, like the playoffs, so did it feel like the same kind of playoffs as last year? Like last year, the playoffs were insane.
These
I know,
playoffs
but
are
like,
so weird.
did you still believe in this team like you did last year though? Or was it the same kind of belief?
No, because the Pelicans series, we got beat up. We got
Threw
punched
us
in the
off,
mouth.
right?
And it was
I think this year's the difference was that this year was the expectation. Last year, nobody expected us to go the whole way. So every single game in the playoffs was just so exciting for us because we're picking up these wins going, holy crap, we're going to get through. We're going into the next round. We're knocking the Lakers out, which is always the greatest event of all time. But then this year, we had the expectation was if we don't make the finals, it's a waste. That's sort of where the expectation lied. So that's why I think the feeling between the two, last year's run and this year's run, completely different. This year was almost anxiety every game that you set up to watch.
The playoffs was. Every game was anxiety. Our message feed is proof of it.
Yeah.
And Gavin, you're 100% right. It was the expectations this year was like this was like a Hollywood script of you knew that the Suns were going to get fucked. Like you knew it was coming because all those expectations were there. You have Monty after every loss saying, the reason we worked so hard for that number 1 seed is so we had home court advantage. You're like, oh, cool. As Game 7 approaches, the one road game they're going to lose or the one home game they're going to lose is the one that matters, right? And again, I think the reason that you're all correct. This season alone was one of the most fun seasons ever. This one of the I've never enjoyed a regular season as much. I've never been impressed with the team as much as I did in the regular season. And that's what makes the end of this season the most disappointing because not only in the manner that they went out, if you lose in heartbreaking fashion like to Mario Elie, right, in the second round of the 1995 NBA playoffs, it's soul crushing. It's like but you felt like you were this close. You were right there. This year, in the matter that they came out, didn't compete, didn't even give us a chance. We didn't even settle in and get through our first beer before everything went haywire and the game was over. I mean, it was over from the beginning. It was embarrassing. All the receipts that the Mavs fans kept on anyone who was a member of the Suns Twitter, they were calling us out on everything. Yeah, as well they should. It was embarrassing. And, I like what Matthew says because, as I look towards next season, I'm thinking the same exact thing. Like, it doesn't matter the seeding anymore. Like, fuck the seeding. As long as you're a top 4 seed, in my opinion, so you have home court in the first round, that's what matters in my opinion. But, I guess I'll ask this question when we go through and we take a look at that Game 7. As we try to purge what happened in that series and try to excavate it from our systems forever. What the fuck went wrong? Who can tell me that?
Everything.
What the fuck went wrong? All right, everything. Easy answer. Now tell me about everything. What made up everything?
Well, I mean, Book and
The Suns
CP
forgot how
not
to play
making it.
basketball.
Yeah. It was such a just one of those things where you can have one guy who's off. You can maybe even have two guys who are off, but for some reason, don't know why, don't know what it was, but literally every single guy on that team was off. Nobody, and it wasn't that they didn't step up, they were just off. Like they couldn't hit a shot to save their fucking lives. And then Mavs took advantage of it. And then after a certain point, you're just like, well, fuck it. I might as well go to Cancun.
Now,
I don't want to get myself injured in this
I think we're
game.
going to be speculating. We're going to be speculating forever what went wrong because there is nothing. Look, we sucked on the floor. There was no doubt about it. Someone put a lid on our basket, and someone expanded the basket at the end of the Mavs because they were just hitting everything. But I think all of us can sort of, or at least have thought about the fact that there were other elements of play here. Something else happened. Whether it happened in the team off court, and the old conspiracy theory was their breakdowns, and I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit of that as we go forward. But to me, it's just you don't forget how to play basketball, and you don't perform that poorly if something else isn't happening in the background. And that, for me, was the biggest concern because our guys, the Pelicans series, we struggled. The Mavs series, 2-0 up, and let's be honest, all of us sat there and went, we're sweeping the Mavs. There's no way they can match up with this team. And then it all turned to shit. Even in our wins, I think we had a pretty comfortable win at home, but even in that, it just something didn't feel right about this squad.
I mean, look at it like Devin Booker getting hurt in game 2 of the Pelican series. That was kind of the initial point that started this trajectory of something doesn't feel right. And then you get into, DeAndre Ayton, Monty Williams having their little beef on the sidelines. It's still not exactly clear what occurred. What was DA not willing to go back into the game? We don't know. CP3, we don't know what's, reported by Chris Haynes shortly after the game that he had a quad injury. But, kind of to Gavin's point, like there's a big mystery about what occurred with this team. And it'll be really interesting if anybody ever does like an oral history of what occurred during the second round of the Western Conference semifinals to a 64-win team and how they completely became decimated. Does anybody have any theories out there? Do we just want to start throwing some shit against the wall just for fun or for podcasting content's sake?
I mean, I'll chime in and say no, I don't, because to say what Matthew said earlier, it doesn't matter, right? Like,
so
he's
you
talking
need to
about
tell
seeding,
me.
but I'm talking about whatever happened, and it needs to be. I agree. There's something internal that obviously created some issues. I also think that there's a lot to the Chris Paul injury thing, because obviously he was not the player that even we saw in the first series. But
wasn't the player
if there was something internal going on, it needs to be addressed during the offseason, and I trust that James Jones will. Speculating what it is, I feel like, is a waste of energy. But for content purposes, I'm sure other people have a different opinion. So that's also partially why.
Well, we'll let Boyd talk real quick. But in summation, essentially what Justin is saying is that
it doesn't matter.
Okay, note to self. Boyd, what do you got?
Fair.
You're on mute, Boyd.
Got to unmute, buddy.
He's not real good with his iPhone studio. We keep trying to get Boyd to update his shit.
Boyd, Nate's got something to say. It's probably more value anyway because Boyd's useless.
Yeah, I'll jump in while Boyd fixes out his iPhone studio.
Still can't hear you, Boyd.
I've been reflecting on the comment made by Sava, like back during negotiations on Ayton's contract when he called him a lazy so-and-so. And then looking back at how he looked in games 7 against the Mavs, he looked like a lazy so-and-so. Was that a consistent thing through the season again, or just the postseason? Was there a chip on his shoulder that caused him to perform badly, or just he lost his edge? And these are all things I've been going back over, thinking that we haven't actually spoke about on our pod.
Well, okay. I think now's a good time.
Watch.
I mean, DeAndre Ayton is obviously the biggest sounding board out there right now, whether you're on Suns Twitter, even Suns Facebook, which generally isn't highly knowledgeable when it comes to things doing with the Phoenix Suns. They're talking about DeAndre Ayton. And I put something out there today from the Suns Jam Session Twitter handle, just kind of talking about how it must feel right now to be like an Ayton stan. Because we all know on Twitter, you have those people who are just like hardcore. They will live and die with DeAndre Ayton. And it's almost to the point, like, to their detriment, right? I said it's got to be tough being a hardcore Ayton stan because you allow your emotional connection to the player and the fact that you define yourself by being an Ayton stan to cloud your view of his effort and play. You're stuck on that island and you will die planting that flag. And the same goes for the anti-Ayton people, right? I think one thing that Matthew and I have done throughout our history on the podcast is there's things we like about him. There's things we don't like about him. You try to take all that information and try to form some point of view on it, right? And I did make the comment that it's kind of like politics. Like, people will sit there and they will die with their party, even if it doesn't make any sense, right? And you get a lot of people right now. A lot of Ayton stans are very defensive because of the point that Nate made. If you go and you look at the effort put forth by DeAndre Ayton in this series, he should have dominated the series, right? He should have been just mulling over. You have Maxi Kleba and you have Dwight Powell as the guy who's trying to guard him. And Matthew and I used to talk, we talked about on a couple post-game pods. He would hide on offense at times. He doesn't have that aggression. And we've talked about it ad nauseum. the aggression that he lacks. Okay, and you're starting to get a lot of those Ayton stands are like, hey, but he did great in the playoffs last year. It's like, okay, so do we take like 26 games in the playoffs last year and say over a 4-year period, that determines a max contract or not? Again, I don't know those things. I don't know truly what his value is. If I could personally, I would bring DeAndre Ayton back. I think he's a very valuable big, but it has to be for the right price, right? We know that there's probably going to be some offers from other teams when it comes to restricted free agency. The Suns can match that offer, and based on the price tag of that offer, they might end up trading him because it doesn't make sense in the long term. But there's a lot of different things here where it's like, I get all the Ayton stands and I get all the haters, as they call them, the Ayton haters out there. I get it. But what we need to do is, really start to take a look at who this player is, how he performs, and what that value is as we move forward with him and this franchise. So based on all that stuff I said, what are you guys thinking? What are you feeling about DeAndre Ayton as potentially, what happened in this series? What's happened in his 4 years as a Phoenix Suns, and how do we move forward with him?
I think he's being scapegoated.
I think so too.
He's 100% being scapegoated. Like, if you're caught talking about that game 7 when Chris Paul and Devin Booker didn't make a shot in the entire first half and we only scored a total of 27 points, and you're blaming Ayton for that when our entire offense is built around those two guys, I'm sorry. That's not on Ayton. And if they weren't getting him involved either, that's not on Ayton.
He's not really sorry, just for the record.
Yeah, nor should he be sorry. I'm a bit of an Ayton stan as well. So I just don't think we run especially when we are struggling to put score on the board. When he seals off, we don't give him the ball at times. It's Devin Booker and Chris Paul want to control the game when we're struggling. They're the ones that think they're going to dig us out of it. And in those Mavs games, they were struggling. They needed to start to include him in the game. And realistically, the pick and roll with Chris Paul and the dump off, it just didn't happen enough. And that, to me, that comes down to the play calls. I just don't think Chris Paul was calling those plays. He was calling plays to try and get shots for Book, try and get shots for McCall, Crowder, whoever it was. We just didn't run the plays for DA. And I think that going forward, look, let's be honest, even NBA media who gives us nothing is talking about DeAndre Ayton being the 4th or 5th best center in the NBA.
Oh, yeah, they're salivating. Teams are salivating to get him.
Yeah.
So do the Phoenix Suns need to pivot and say, hey, we're going to bring back DA and we have a commitment to involve him more in this offense? In my personal opinion, that's the answer. That's what needs to occur. Now, again, it has to be for the right price tag because there's not a lot of teams that are successful who pay their center a max contract deal. Matthew, what do you think?
This is just really weird. I think that the way DA actually handled himself during the game, after the game, I think that's a lot of the reason why everyone's kind of like attacking him, right? Yeah. He didn't talk to the media. You saw him yelling at Monty. Like, that's stuff that you don't see like Booker or Chris Paul do. Well, Booker being a young guy, right? The first 4 years, he had a lot of growing to do. He was very immature too. But you never saw things like that. You never saw him say anything or hide from the media. I think that's the reason really a lot of people are going after him. Of course, I don't think it's his fault. My stomach, my gut is just telling me like to not bring him back, but I do want him back. I don't know if this is like a Josh Jackson thing where I'm like, oh, it's Josh Jackson. This is, of course, Josh Jackson was terrible. But it's like, is he going to go somewhere else and blossom? I know. Is he going to go somewhere else and be the man? Like, those are things you worry about, right? But the thing is with DA, it's just like, we're talking about like not having him involved in the game, right? The way he plays the best is when Chris Paul and Devin Booker can really set him up for success. He can't really play with the ball in his hands. He could. I feel like this season he had the opportunity to really work on his game and try to make it a point to where he can handle the ball, get to the rim on his own. It's things like that. Work on moves all season long.
When did he have those opportunities? Like,
I think he did all season.
Seriously? No, he didn't. No, he didn't. The ball's in Chris Paul or Devin Booker or Cameron Payne's hands the whole time.
Yeah, but he could during the season. He's had opportunities. Of course, he sets the screens and the plays aren't ran for him. But if he wanted it, he could have probably put it in there. We won 64 games. There's so many minutes on the court left out there for him to where he could just take over if he wants to.
But this goes back to what you were saying before, Matthew, with the fact that next year the seed doesn't matter. This year they were playing for that record. So they ran those plays for Book, for CP. I agree with Paul. They gave DA none of those opportunities to do it. a couple of times we saw little glimpses of it, and sort of all of us, he'd put the ball on the floor, take it to the rim. You know, we were all sitting there going, geez, let's see more of that. We want to see more of that every week. But the problem was that this side, I think the whole season set themselves goals and targeted those goals and played the game with those play calls set for Paul, Booker, and our outside shooters, not for DeAndre Ayton.
And if you take a look at the usage rate this year, obviously Devin Booker was the highest usage rate player on the team at 31.3%. DeAndre Ayton of the starters was number 2, 21.7. Chris Paul was a 19.7 usage rate. So I can see Matthew's point of view. You know, he had the ball in his hands. Did he execute with the ball in his hands as much?
I don't think he knows how to, though. That's the thing.
Yes.
And like that's where behind the scenes we'll find out when Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton are sitting across from each other like Shaq and Kobe 20 years from now, talking about how they're big babies and they couldn't work things out. You know what I mean? That's what's going to happen. But I just think that DA did have opportunities, but would them let him do it? Because honestly, we will never know. And we'll never know until we saw DA yell at Monty on the sideline, like, hey, I need the ball. Maybe that's just what they go through in practice. It's like, hey, can we run plays for me, please? And it's like, no. Just stick to the plan. You'll get your opportunity. Maybe that was it. So who knows?
Nate, what do you think?
I love that Shaq, the Shaq comparison, because I saw someone mention in the feed there that they wanted to see him dunk more. And I agree. I wanted to see Ayton turn around and do a full-on Shaq dunk with his dick in someone's face and just rub it in.
Yeah. We all wanted that.
That kind of aggression. I mean,
yeah, he doesn't have that desire to crush it. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to fault him for dunks or no dunks. As long as the ball goes in the basket, that's all I truly care. Of course, when you're watching the game, the emotion of the game, you're like, fucking dunk the ball, DA. You know, of course, that's how you feel in the game. But at the end of the day, you know, it's about like he's got 12 field goal attempts. You know, during the regular season, 12 field goal attempts the entire time. You know, Boyd, let's see if your audio works this time. And what are your thoughts?
Right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, look, I think DA, he's sacrificed, right? So he's playing a team game, and I guess you would see a lot of other number one picks out there that are, especially towards the end of that first contract, that rookie contract, just doing whatever they want, despite what the team needs. And you know, he's got guys barking at him on really big contracts who are being looked after, and you know, his guy from the same draft class in Mikal Bridges was extended. So look, he's got reason, and everything's amplified, everything's magnified in playoffs, right? It may not be a massive thing between him and Monty. It may have just been a brain explosion there. So I think emotions are heightened, and I think I don't think it is what everyone's saying it is, and ultimately we have to pay him, and if we don't fucking like it, we can get rid of him by the trade deadline, and it's going to be a heap of teams who are just going to give us good stuff. It's not as tricky as a sign and trade, and yeah, he might. You know, we might say, oh shit, he's now a top 3 center, and just keep him past that trade deadline. But the thing is that he can't walk for nothing. He can't take that qualifying offer and ride out that $16 million and then become an unrestricted free agent next season. That these things can't happen. We have to pay him. We have to get something for him or get something out of him. But you know, I think it's a lot of smoke and not much fires at the moment with DA. He would have calmed down after the game, and you know, things would have been patched up. But ultimately, when our backcourt, our star backcourt, were shit in the bed, did you see DA running back down the court barking at any of them two? What the fuck are you guys doing? It doesn't go both ways. So that's got to be really, you must get tired of that, right? Yeah, you know, these guys with these big contracts and the whole system's built around them guys. But yeah. Look, I think it's very much going to be a run it back type of a thing with some minor adjustments. But I think DA stays with us until at least the trade deadline, unless there's a really tricky sign and trade. That's my thoughts there.
What do you think, Justin?
I think DA's gone. Like, I think we've seen the last of him in the Suns uniform. I think he's going to be part of a sign and trade this offseason. And yeah, that's that. I mean, and I guess you could qualify me as a DA stan, could you? Yeah, probably. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know though. Like, I feel like
And
he is.
if not for the fact that he's a Luka hater.
Here's
Like,
here's
typically have like a picture of DA in their profile picture or under their description. It talks about, like I would take a load in his mouth.
I mean, yeah, that's a level of
I believe
that's a stand though, in my opinion.
I will check this after I'm done speaking, but I'm quite certain that in my phone I have June 6th as DeAndre Ayton Day as a yearly event because that was the day that we drafted him. So for whatever that might be worth. But regardless, my point being, I've in the very least been an ardent DA supporter.
That's where I lie.
Frankly, even before his U of A days when he was like playing high school ball here in Phoenix, right? But I'm kind of lost on where I stand on him at this point because I think about everything he has done throughout his time here so far. He's done what he's been asked to do. He has sacrificed for the team. He carried us through a lot of the playoffs last year. But dude, what have you done for me lately, right? And I try not to look at that, but I just think about like what did he have to say to make Monty Williams freaking react like that, right? And to get that type of reaction from Monty Williams, that concerned me because we know what kind of guy Monty is, right?
Maybe it was the truth that got him to react.
Right. Well, maybe. Right. That could have been it.
It's all built up.
But I think, let's also, maybe people say don't read into it, but I think Monty Williams is a guy that chooses his words very carefully. And let's not forget that after the game, the next day or whenever, when he did that interview, he mentioned some of the younger players by name and how they performed in the playoffs. And the one dude that he did not mention was DeAndre Ayton. I think that's not just a brain fart. And if it is, that's like Paul to go to a reference of one of our favorite shows here. That's like I forgot about you type of moment, right? and that's not only
that. Not only that, he admitted in that interview that he hadn't even spoken to DA since the incident. I mean, to me, that's weird. But these bench incidents do happen. I mean, we've seen Spo and Jimmy Butler nearly punch on, and they can make it work. And I think sign and trade's going to be pretty difficult.
But Justin, you said sign and trade, but I'm interested in your opinion on who drives that: the player, the GM, or the owner.
I think the GM,
the other player we want.
But the player is going to have to also cooperate to a certain degree because it's going to have to involve obviously a sign, right? So there's certain leverage that the player would have there, but at the same time, if the player doesn't want to be where the player currently is, how strong really is that leverage? Because
this isn't about Eric Bledsoe, though. So yeah.
No longer. I could have had the same conversation about him or probably Josh Jackson, anybody really.
Well, do you think though, really quick, John, the players though, they knew that something was going to happen, right? Mikhail even said something after the game where he's like, whatever happens to him, wish him the best. It's like, do you think everyone knew, including like Booker and CP3, like it just wasn't going to work out? Because wasn't there rumors about DeAndre Ayton wanting out 2 months ago or something in Phoenix? I heard that
there's a ton of rumors. There's the team was disappointed because he only got a couple hours of sleep prior to the game 7 because he was up playing video games all night. So they're pissed at him in that capacity. There's all kinds of stuff out there that we don't like we said, we don't know what.
That story wasn't great that dropped the day before that. It's like, I get 2 hours of sleep at night because I play video games.
Yeah.
Like,
and
so that's supposed to be like a puff piece on DA. I'm like, that's really what you're running with?
It's maybe you let that one float away in the puff.
So you question the commitment of DA at times, and you question his physicality at times, you question his aggression at times. So again, that's why there's a lot of questions around DeAndre Ayton. But one thing that the majority of you hit on, and you have to recognize, is that he has been a team player by sacrificing the numbers, if you will. He's sacrificing the shot attempts, right? He had almost 15 field goals a game the year that we had Ricky Rubio. He's averaging 18.2 points a game. The next year, CP3 shows up. He drops down to 10 field goal attempts per game. And then this past season, it was 12 field goal attempts per game. So it's clear that the Phoenix Suns decided we're going to be a guard-centric team. We're going to focus a lot of our actions coming off of our guards, penetrate, pop, hit DA at times, hit our three-point shooters at times. That was kind of the essence of who our offense was. It brings you to another question, Chris Paul. One, DA had to sacrifice because of Chris Paul's arrival. Right. And part of that sacrifice is understanding that he's going to learn from him. He's going to put him in a place or potentially put him in an area that'll allow him to be successful, him being DA. But now Chris Paul is 37, and he looked every bit of 37 from the moment he turned 37. He played like absolute dog shit. Matthews' mustache could have played better on offense, especially in that game 7. So as we look towards next year, go ahead.
I just want to circle back on one last thing on DA.
Okay.
You're welcome, Justin. I at least warned him on that one.
Dude, that was lovely.
Hey,
you know what? You can do that whenever you want on our show, buddy. Whenever you want, okay?
I just want to circle back to something that was kind of glossed over very early on when we started talking about DA, where you said that paying centers in this league is like a fool's errand, basically.
For the most part, yes.
We're coming off a season where the top 2 MVP candidates were centers.
And how many of them have even gone to a conference finals?
Well,
I mean, that's what that's
Giannis isn't.
Well, Giannis is basically a freaking center, but
he's a 4. They have Brook Lopez out there.
Giannis is not a center.
AD's not a center.
Giannis is
AD's a center, alien, but he doesn't want to be a center.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
To your point though, this season, Jokovic was on a team with fucking scrubs. Joel Embiid was on a team with fucking scrubs and James Harden.
I wouldn't say that though. One, his name is Jokic, not Jokovic.
You're right.
Two, Jokic. It's the Jameson. It's the Jameson. I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. But like last year, Jokic was on team again. Granted, they were without Jamal Murray in the playoffs, but I just think that it's. When's the last time a center led a team to a title? It was Shaquille O'Neal 20 years ago. It's not the way that you structure teams.
I think that's what Paul's trying to say, right?
Well, no, what I'm trying to say is there's ebbs and flows in this league, and we ebbed away from centers for a very, very long time, and
20 years.
They're well not.
And then this Jokovic guy comes around.
Yeah, isn't he a great tennis player?
He is. He's a sensational tennis player. Non-vaxxed, he can't play.
Well, no, yeah, non-vaxxed, he can't play. I get what you're saying.
I love you, Paul.
But see, that's the argument that's going on right now, and that's going to be one of the things we're going to talk about throughout this offseason is what is the value of DA, because somebody out there will pay him. If not a max, something very close, something as close as they can to a Joel Embiid or to.
The reality is that's his value. And if somebody else is willing to pay it,
then that's his value. Exactly, the market dictates the value. But what does that equate to in postseason success?
Let Justin speak.
Hold on, really quick.
Justin hates not being in control.
I just need. I do. This is. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say
me a lot, but really quickly. Last season, when the whole DA max contract thing came up, and everyone was jumping up and down the table like Michael Porter Jr. got one. The market says he's a max contract guy, and I'm like, the market doesn't say shit until he's exposed to the market. Everyone's like, that doesn't make. Thank you guys for being fucking.
It absolutely
That's
makes
all.
sense.
That's all.
Yeah,
thank you.
100%
and yes,
makes sense.
MPJ got his max, but
when his back
that was a choice from Denver, and I'd say it was because Jamal Murray was injured. But the reality is that we know that Detroit, San Antonio are probably going to try and offer DA a contract.
Mm-hmm. Indiana,
at least.
So
Chicago.
DA's value is the max.
Yep. And again, to the point, I like what Boyd said earlier, we can match that. And then it's, you prove it to us that you're worth it, or we can get some assets for you that are going to allow this team to be productive moving forward. And again, I'm going to try to once again guide that conversation towards the Chris Paul aspect of this whole
I'm not
thing.
done with DA.
Okay. Get it.
No.
It's an hour on DA.
I was actually going to say it would suck if he went to San Antonio.
Of course he would.
Because
Paul would use him right.
that's gonna backfire. Just like Luka going to the Mavericks, it's like, these players that you don't want to go to these certain teams and succeed. It'd be one of them, and it would definitely happen if you went to San Antonio. So let's avoid that at least.
So Chris Paul, getting older, ton of money. It's all guaranteed next year. What should the Suns do with him? Do you think he should play here next year? I know it's a weird question to ask, but he proved this season that he could guide a team to their best record in the franchise's history. But as things go, an old point guard wore down in the playoffs simply by being pestered by Jose Alvarado and Reggie Bullock, and again looked so resigned in the playoffs that it was just unbelievably frustrating to watch. So thoughts on Chris Paul? Boyd, you said yes. Tell me about it.
Yeah, look, he sticks around, and I think he's he does so much for the whole team, and we can keep saying, oh, it's only good for the regular season, but at the end of the day, what we should have done in that Pelicans series is not change the way that we play basketball with Chris Paul and having Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges, or anyone else bring the ball up the court. It's just like since that time when he got forced them violations in the backcourt, and we changed around and we weren't imposing our will on the other team. We let them dictate to us how we're going to play the point guard, the Hall of Famer. We changed everything. So that changed the way that we set the table for everyone else. So ultimately, if it's going to wear him down, that sort of a playing 28 minutes a game instead of 38 minutes a game, but play his basketball and do it his way, do it our way. And I think from that moment, and if we make that change and we play Chris Paul as he was, as he is put out there to do, I think he's great for another season. We just have to do it our way, and like it ties into we beat ourselves. We overthought it, I think, but yeah, we keep him, and we keep him for that following year when it's only partially guaranteed, like 15.8 million. We keep him then too, and give him a little bit more rest if he needs it. But yeah, look, we keep him, and then that last season, if he's still got some tank, some petrol in the tank, well, then we maybe look at restructuring it, because that's fully unguaranteed. But yeah, we're keeping CP3, man, for sure.
But does keeping CP3, is it detrimental to DeAndre Ayton? Because again, DeAndre Ayton has to sacrifice a lot with CP3. It might be
detrimental to the whole team.
Okay, so tell me about that, Paul.
CP3 wears his welcome out around year 3, particularly when you have success, and that's part of that's the disease of me, and whatnot that comes with having success. And then you got a drill sergeant like CP, and like maybe that's part of what has been the DA situation to an extent. Is, you know what, I've been taking your shit for 2 years, and
then you suck, and
you're not showing me the result, and you're not showing me the growth. You're not incorporating me the way I want to, and then you go and suck, and then you're not shifting to incorporate me. But I don't know. I'd be interested to see. Like, I'd hate to see this team go the way of the Clippers, and hope it doesn't.
Jesus,
Justin's face,
bro.
Something you said.
But it was about year 3 when that went to shit too.
Yeah, something you said before there, Voida, is he was shit in Game 7. No, he was shit in fucking 5 of the games. Let's be honest.
Correct.
But he needs to pull a Jason Kidd here. Jason Kidd went and became the second, third option, was happy to cop it, and won a title. That's what CP3 needs to do. He 37. Look, as long as we run back 36-year-old CP3 during next season, no worries. 37-year-old CP3 sucks ass.
Nate, what do you think?
No matter how much he hates it, we need to DNP rest that guy.
Amen.
I was going to go on this whole
the good thing is we're not going to spend next year targeting 64 wins, franchise records, breaking all that sort of stuff. They did that this year. Next year, they are going to be far more methodical about how we structure our regular season. I can see it right now. They will assess the fact that we went hard to try and break those records this year, and we will settle back into a more methodical structure for next year.
But did we really go hard to try to break those records? I
course
mean,
we
we
did.
rested guys towards
We
the end
could
of
have
the
rested
year.
them.
We did.
Really?
Yeah, yes.
Chris Paul came back
Like-
way too early from his injury. Way too early.
I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know.
You just
I
pretend to
would-
be
I
on
would-
television, right?
I would assume
Yeah, you,
that
you just watch a lot of medical
that
dramas.
the medical staff said he was okay, but there were games when Book sat. There were games when CP sat. They rested guys. I don't think you can do much more resting than they really did, frankly. Maybe that's part of the problem we had in the playoffs.
So
We took the
CP
foot off the
played
pedal.
every single game up until that injury, and he was playing well over the amount of minutes that he should have been playing in that span. I think his highest minutes since joining the Rockets back in what was that, five or so years ago. So yeah, he was playing 33 minutes a game or something like that. Yeah. Then he got
It's too
injured
many
and he
minutes
took a
for
month off,
36.
and then he rested 2 games right at the end of the so
Right.
2 games rest, 4 weeks injured. But
It
the
seems like a lot
entire
of rest, doesn't it?
the overall product was when he was out there for the majority of the time, he was probably playing too much.
Yeah, so what they should do next year is fourth quarter, bring him out in a cryo chamber or something, right? Fourth quarter, that's it. Go back in the cryo until next
Comes
game.
out like Darth Vader.
Yeah, just do, because there's nothing else you can do. This guy just wants to play every game. He wants to play
Yeah,
every minute.
Not the
unless
fourth
he's
quarter
hurt.
though, Matthew. He needs
Huh?
to just sit the second and third. Just leave him off for the second and third, because we saw this year what Chris Paul does in last quarters.
No, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Bring him out for just the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
Just the
yeah,
fourth,
yeah.
So he plays
Hold
in
on.
Maybe
only
just
the
the 5
fourth quarter.
minutes. Not even,
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
last 5
If
minutes.
it's crunch
The last
time, you
5
just bring
minutes,
him
yeah.
out.
But
Booker
Booker has to be
7
so much
minutes
better
a game.
too. And yeah, and we were talking about him taking a back seat. Chris Paul liked the Jason Kidd thing. I like that. It's just Booker has to be that much better. Like when the Mavericks had Dirk, that's a guy that can just take over games. Like Book can for sure, but he needs to go up another level then, right? If he wants to kind of pass Chris Paul, which I kind of thought he was going to this playoffs, but just never really happened.
Well, he allowed Booker allowed traps in that Mavs series. He got himself in positions that allowed the Mavs to trap him and take him out of the contest. And he's got to be better than that. If you want to take over games, he can't allow traps.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, it sounds like Chris Paul back. Everybody's for that, right? And we also think that DA we should bring back, obviously, because we know the market's going to dictate that he'll be worth a max or something close to it. So it comes down to the one big question. I'm going to start off with Justin on this one, right? Will Sarver allow it? We will go into the luxury tax next year if DeAndre Ayton gets paid the max, and you got the Cameron Johnson question out there. What does this do to our roster? Is your boy Bobby Sarver going to allow the Phoenix Suns to spend that much money?
Yeah, he will. I don't think it's going to ultimately be on DA because, like I said, I think he's going to be gone. But I think he will. I mean, and he's gone on record doing it, and he's done it before. It's a while back. But he's showed that he's willing to pay for a team that's going to win games and put butts in the seats, and that's what we've seen this team do. And also keep in mind we've got a little boost to the league revenue coming up in a couple of years, so maybe he'll be feeling a little frisky with that coming up. So when the new TV deal 2025 is it something like that?
Something like that.
So I think he will.
Baby.
And I think he's. As much as people want to say like the not paying DA last offseason thing was Sarver driven, I still believe that it was James Jones driven.
I do too.
And I still believe that. So I think Sarver's done a good job truly giving James Jones the reins here. And at the end of the day, I expect him to keep doing that. So if that means going into that luxury tax, then I think they'll do it. And I mean, the way the team is structured right now, it's almost impossible not to if you want to maintain this level, unless you're just going to magically find a bunch of dudes on their first contract that are going to perform like our guys on the first contracts have done over the past couple of years, which isn't going to happen.
Anybody else?
You have to go into the
Bobby
luxury
Sarver?
tax to win in this league.
Oh
Period.
yeah.
Yep.
Period. If you're not going to do that, don't own a team.
On one of our Aussie pods Justin convinced me that Robert Sava is not really the tight ass everyone thinks he is. So I actually don't. I believe that Sava will happily go into luxury tax now, because after Justin said it, I did research to try and prove him wrong, and I couldn't prove him wrong. So I think he's more than happy to go into luxury tax. But in saying that, I think we have some expiring contracts next year that we may lean on in the trade period in the off season.
So who's not on this season or who's not on this team next year?
Cameron Payne.
Cameron Payne.
Cameron Payne.
Shaman will be here. Shaman will 100% be here. Cameron Payne will, yeah.
I think Shaman will be here. I think Campaign will too.
I can't take Shaman. I can't take it. There's a whole season of that crap. I think
what we tend to forget is, look, okay, so almost back on DA. If DA does go, does Saric become our starting centre? Because everyone forgets him because he hasn't played for a year.
Oh yeah. I forgot about Dario. I did forget about Dario, and I literally had facial hair that I named after him, and I forgot about it.
Well, remember, I mean, they made a run to the finals with Dario. The moment he gets hurt, we lose. We lose. We have a shitty postseason. What was our final record of the postseason this year? It was 7-6.
What postseason?
Yeah. Well, I mean, 7-6 this postseason. Last season, he went out in game 1. So we won that game. So we were 2 and I don't want to do
2-0.
Yeah, we're 2. Well, we're 1-0 with him, but we were 1-4.
We bad without
1-4
him.
without him. So we were 8-10 in the playoffs without Dario Saric.
I think we're on to something here. I think
This
we've been
is the
talking
way.
about the wrong guy all this time.
Dario is the future. But in saying that, I also think Dario's contract is expiring and pretty valuable when it comes to a trade. Same with Jay Crowder.
Yeah, Jay can go, in my opinion, but
The Saric smoke break.
I've waited like a whole season to play that shit. I don't know about Landry Shamet. I mean, everyone says he's going to be here. I'm with Matthew. Like, I don't want to watch another
would he
year.
come back?
I don't want to watch another
can't
year
do
of. What is the stat I saw somebody put out there on Twitter? It's like every
team that he's played for has lost in game 7 of the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Team. 4 different teams.
Yeah, damn it, Shamet, get out of here.
Actually,
but who's taking that contract?
I want to get rid of him.
It's not a bad
contract.
It's not a bad contract.
It's immensely tradable.
Yes, that's why
a
lot of people
only 2 years
at the beginning,
guaranteed, right?
I think it's 2 years
guaranteed.
I think it's 9 or 10
the only
million.
guaranteed year.
Well,
So-
hang on a minute. If you asked the question before about who's coming back, Gav, if you're getting rid of Crowder, Payne's going, Shamet's going, G's off.
That's
Like,
$30 million you need for you need that money.
JaVale's staying. JaVale's definitely staying. He's going to go to third in the rotation behind Saric, who's going to start, and Ayton as his backup.
I think we bring in Russell Westbrook to play center.
Ayton as the backup? Did you say Ayton as the backup?
Yeah, I know. Paul. I was just trying to wind some up.
But at the same point, like, you're going to have to pay Ayton, you're going to have to pay potentially Cameron Johnson. So you're going to have to cut some of that money. And the way to do that is get rid of all those like $10 to $15 million contracts that you have. And that's where it will hurt the Suns. That's why this was the best opportunity for the Suns, because on the roster, if you go 5x3, right, 5 positions times 3 deep, we had a very deep, solid roster.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to just very briefly, because I kind of wanted to put 2022 and the playoffs behind us, but that's where Monty Williams, I feel like, is the ultimate culprit of the loss of the playoffs. Is he did not make the necessary adjustments. He didn't utilize that depth. We talk about it multiple times. I know Aaron Holiday is. A lot of people are like, well, Aaron Holiday was the answer. It's like, not necessarily, but for maybe 5 minutes at a time to give you some semblance of energy, perhaps, because we saw that in the Pelican series and it worked. For long periods of time, no, because he's mini Eric Bledsoe, man. He runs into a pile of people, he jumps in the air, and then he has to figure out who he's got to pass it to. But Monty Williams didn't utilize the depth at his disposal throughout that entire Maverick series, and ultimately we got boned for it, because at the end, then your tired players are playing like shit, and they all have the off night together, and they all sit around, well, yeah, it's an off night of basketball, so our depth will be hurt next year. We will not be nearly as deep of a team. But if we can have a very solid top 9, that's what we'll need in the playoffs, because we didn't utilize all 15 this year. You shouldn't use all 15 in the playoffs. You need to have a really solid top 9. But yeah, losing all these people.
Oh, we lost you too, man.
You lost my camera. You can still hear me though, right?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I know my camera's just like
it's off the rails now.
Yeah. Oh no, there's no one to guide the ship.
No,
oh no,
Justin.
No,
Justin,
Justin, take over.
Here I am.
But John, when you're talking about bringing in Holiday or else even Ish Wainwright, we were talking about that too. That just means you're going to lose the series. If you're wishing those guys can come in and spark this team, you just know you're going to lose. That's what sucks. We can talk about next year.
My point too, Matthew. I agree with 100%.
But even though we wanted it at the time, it's just like we know we're going to lose.
You just wanted something to be a spark.
Cameron Payne was fantastic for us in the playoffs last year. This year he struggled. But reality is, if Aaron Holiday has to come in for us to win playoff games,
you're pretty fucked.
We're a long way behind.
Yes.
Yeah, I think campaign though I could see being gone. I could see both. I could see us retooling that backcourt. I really could. Those are good tradable contracts. We could try to bring in something new. Cameron Payne just didn't have it all season last year. He was consistently inconsistent. Shamet consistently inconsistent. And there's a reason they're bench players, and I get that.
So I want to throw out something that we've talked about on our pod. Would you guys say that Cameron Payne regressed?
100%.
Yeah.
Boyd,
he was my future son's point guard at one time. Now, I don't know. I was high that day.
What do you think, Justin? Chris Paul for Darren Fox?
Yeah, oh yeah, I've been.
Are you guys texting each other? You guys texting each other?
And just to add pain to everybody, it would have been nice to have relied on Tyrese Halliburton as a backup point guard.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been horrible.
Oh yeah, or Jalen Smith as something to help us. Some guy to help us with the boards. That's going to be a tough one. Well, next year when he shows up a little bit, we're gonna be like, oh.
He was showing up for
Indiana. Tyrese Halliburton feeding him too.
Yeah, true.
He was doing fine for Indiana. I was keeping tabs on him. He's a rotation player. Not that he's worth a 10th pick, but he's a rotation player.
We shows up in Phoenix and just dominates DA.
Oh, hey guys, we're a destination now. I will say, so we're going to pick up all them really handy players on minimums, aren't we? Isn't that the way it works? If you're the place all these guys want to play, you get all these.
Question though,
like
do
Los Angeles.
Do players still want to play here though?
No, that's the problem with the contract situation the Suns have right now. It's not like as dire as like the Lakers as in terms of being top loaded, but it's getting close, and that's why. When I talked about this throughout the season. We talked about this, excuse me, Paul, throughout the season on our pod, and that's with those contracts, that being CP, Book, McHale, with the DA one coming up one way or another, whether that's to pay him, to sign trade, whatever, and with Cam Johnson coming up, if you're going to pay like Cam Johnson in that McHale range, you're looking at a team that 2 years out is going to be sitting on contracts of their top 5, 6, 7 guys with even the bumps in the salary cap are putting them right at the luxury tax threshold, even before talking about filling out that roster. So while you don't have it as top heavy, you're looking at that whole, okay, now we're filling out the bottom half of our entire roster with potentially these vet minimum guys. Maybe you get an exception in there, whatever, but mostly with vet minimum guys, and I just don't think that's going to work. That's why I think this offseason's really the most important offseason the Suns are going to have in the next 4 seasons, because it's really going to dictate what we're going to be looking at on the court.
And that's why I think our $10 to $15 million contracts are going to be so vital in this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we move them and remove some salary, it releases the pressure from that side of things.
Well, precisely. And there are some interesting free agents that the Suns could potentially go after if they can move those contracts, get away from those 10 to 15 millions and bring in some veteran minimums. I mean, one guy I'd love to see playing in Phoenix next year.
Limpieza profunda e higiene? Confía en HS para un pelo 100% libre de caspa. Clínicamente probado. HS, champú número 1 en España.
Papa Ricky Rubio will be a free agent. Let's bring him back, baby. Let's do it.
shit.
I was not
when he
prepared
brings
for that.
Yeah.
I was not expecting
When
that.
is when is he going to be able to play?
After a
Yeah,
shower,
it's
of
gonna
course.
Yeah. He takes his shit.
He can get the herbal essence ad in America.
Besides that,
I don't think Ricky wants to come back, guys. After
No, they let him down,
Afflicted.
right?
Yeah.
yeah, that was sad.
We've done a good job of pissing people off and kicking them out the door.
Yeah, that's the Sun's way. I mean,
Yeah.
guys. Oh,
Josh Jackson's gonna be.
Wait, are we sitting here like being like, "Oh, poor Ricky Rubio" because we traded to get Chris Paul? Like,
No.
Let's chill a little bit here.
And he went and played for Cleveland and was like great until he broke his leg.
Yeah. Well, and again, like we're not saying poor Ricky Rubio. It probably didn't leave a good taste in his mouth that he helped get a team so close to the playoffs. You know, what's his name?
Oh, so he's Nomar.
Curvit. What's that guy's name who missed the jumper for Brooklyn? Karis LeVert.
Karis
Karis
LeVert,
LeVert jumper away from going to the playoffs one year, and then we traded him right away. So he probably wasn't super happy with that. But we'll see. You know, there's a ton of things. We'll continue on all of our respective podcasts to talk about this offseason. As Justin said, this is an unbelievably important offseason for this Phoenix Suns squad. So there's definitely going to be a lot of content coming from all three of our podcasts, from the Aussie Suns Fans podcast, from the Fanning the Flames podcast, and from the Suns Jam Session podcast. So before we get out of here, just want to go around. I got one question. You know, I'm looking at our notes, and Justin had a question that he wanted to bring up. If one Suns podcaster was a closet serial killer, who would it be? Let us know. As we go around, let us know who your answer to that is, and then tell us where everybody can find you and follow you and your podcast. Let's start with Boyd.
It's Matthew Lissy.
This is going to be unanimous. It's going to be unanimous.
He's by far the cleanest, the most well-spoken. There's some shit going on there in the background. I know there is. I'm locking my doors if I've got Lissy in the neighborhood.
Guy here, dude.
All right, Boyd, tell everyone where they can follow you and find you in your pod.
Me, I'm at Buds83, and that's my kid screaming at me in the background in case you can't hear. But yeah, Aussie Suns Fans podcast.
Or is that one of your victims screaming for?
Who knows?
Boyd might be the
mate?
serial killer.
Could be.
All right, Justin.
It's Paul. That's all.
He's got a closet behind him, so closet serial killer. I could definitely say that.
Just saying, it's Paul. And I'm at So Says Jay, of course.
And the name of your podcast is?
What is it? Fanning the Flames at Fan the Flames NDA, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
All right, Matthew, I'll let you go.
I think it's me. For sure. One of these days.
On camera.
Yeah. I am going kind of out late tonight, so we'll see. The place has an alley. Let's see how it works out.
Matthew, where can they follow you?
Matthew, listen.
The alley.
Not in the alley.
All right, Nate.
I was going to say
sorry,
Boyd,
I'm sorry.
and that was before I saw his stupid mustache today. Now I'm certain.
No, you're just convinced.
That thing on his face that could kill people.
For the record, I love it, Boyd. I love it.
Yeah.
And where can people follow you?
His best feature. I'm at Free Beer at Marley's. I don't check my feed too often, but by all means, jump on. No, I'm at Nicky's Falcon. I absolutely do not check Twitter, so feel free.
You lucky dog, you lucky dog. Paul?
I mean, Justin said me. I'm gonna have to say him. I mean, he's this close to having that hair that Christian Bale had in American Psycho.
Susu Studio.
I can just see him like going like this.
Thank you. Oh, hell yeah. I practice that dance every night in the mirror.
At Dervish of Whirl, as it says on the screen.
There you go. Well, for those listening, they can't see our screen, so
let's look in the notes.
There you go. Look at the notes. Subscribe, rate, review, all that fun stuff. Gavin?
At Aussie Suns Fans or at Guesswork Gav. To be honest, I can't believe Dave King got away with no nominations. So I'm going to nominate
how do we
Dave.
not name anybody who wasn't on the screen?
Okay, can we talk about this? You don't say who you actually think, because then you're the next victim. Duh. Idiots. Now the
Just-
serial killer's
just
coming
a heads
after.
up.
And now I'll say this: my real answer, one of you's fucked. If my kids are listening, don't repeat what Daddy said.
just a heads up to everyone. Nate and myself.
It's Lindsay
what are we,
Smith.
Nate? 13 days. 13
Gerald
days.
Bourguet. Gerald Bourguet.
We're pumped. We're looking forward to catching up with everyone when we're over there.
4th of
Justin's
June,
going to
get
come
ready.
out and buy beers for everybody who comes and hangs out with us. And clearly, we're going to Marley's.
Yeah.
You should do this at Marley's, like seriously.
I was gonna say, where could we find you at?
I feel
Every
like
one of the Marleys around the valley.
I feel like they were like, well, the Suns lost, but let's still go to Arizona so we can run up Justin's bar tab because he did promise to buy us drinks when we were out there. And you know what?
And
It'll
the
be
fun part is
completely
he
worth
doesn't
it. I'm
drink.
ready. I know, right? Jesus. I just get to watch my money get spent. I can't wait. Let's do it, boys. I can't wait.
That's what
I
having
really am
kids
excited,
is.
though, for real. Yeah, I know. I'm used to that.
And my name is @Darth Voida. You can follow the Suns Jam Session @SunsJam on all your major pod forums, right, guys? Pod forums. Subscribe, rate, and review. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button. If you're listening, please subscribe, rate, and review. I will say, if you go to the Aussie Suns Fans Apple podcast page, they do have some ratings, and one of them is from Boyd. It says, great pod. Boyd's takes really resonate with me, and usually are spot on. Cam Johnson should start soon over Crowder. It's a 5-star review.
There you go.
So that's fantastic. So
Attaboy, Boyd.
so that's my nomination for the serial killer. I heard a scream. I see a mustache, and he's talking about himself in the third person in reviews on Apple Podcasts. So that's the serial killer. Again, thank you everybody for joining the pod. It was a pleasure doing it with all you guys. I feel it was somewhat therapeutic. We obviously have a massive offseason ahead of us. I'm sure we'll all jump on each other's podcasts at points and talk about different things that are going on. But until then, Matthew, is there anything anybody needs to do?
Go home and love your family.
Word.